in the interest of my well-being, I'm going to sort of stay seated, and in the interest of your well-being, I thought I'd spare you a few more slides. So sit back, relax, and let me tell you a story. I could possibly entitle this one Back to the Future, because this is my second tour of duty in the South Australian government. My first time I started in DPC back in 2006, and under Mike Rann, the Premier, we were busy implementing what was known as the South Australian Strategic Plan. It had 6 outcome measures. I pulled them out: growing prosperity, improving well-being, attaining sustainability, fostering creativity and innovation, building communities, expanding opportunity. All laudable goals. There were 6 outcome measures. There were 108, I think, targets. Grace, tell me if I've got that wrong. Something like that. It influenced budget. Our cabinet office was redesigned around those themes. It had an external audit committee that was outside of government that reviewed our progress against those targets, that was published. So it was all at arm's length from government, so government wasn't marking its own homework. But importantly, this plan wasn't the government's plan, it was the South Australian Strategic Plan. It was developed through an extensive process of public participation and consultation. About 13,000 citizens contributed to it online, in town halls and so on, to help build up this strategic plan. So this, I thought, was a really interesting story, and I share this because the South Australian public servants have kind of got this a little bit in our muscle memory when we think about how we're sort of really operationalising these concepts today, for better or for worse. So that was under Mike Rann. The following Labor Premier, Jay Weatherill, slightly deprioritised the strategic plan, and then when there was a change of government to the Liberals in 2018, the strategic plan died within 6 months. Probably another salutary lesson for us when we're talking about frameworks and helping to embed them. I came back to the South Australian government about 3 years ago. Actually had a look at the strategic plan. It's not bad, but you know, have to start afresh. The economic strategy that we had at the time was a document called Growth State, which named 9 industry sectors and wanted them to get 3% bigger. My first read of that was, there are smart ways of getting to 3% and there are dumb ways of getting to 3%, and 3% is just a number. And so I'm sure some of you in the room have read people like Mariana Mazzucato, Kate Rayworth talk about growth needing not just a rate but a directionality, and the need for the economy to actually sort of serve people and planet. So how do we operate within planetary boundaries, and how do we provide a sort of minimum social safety net for our citizenry? So with all of this, I attempted to subvert our economic strategy to make sure that well-being was front and centre. And I don't have a slide, but I do have a prop, which is our South Australian Economic Statement, which was waved around by the Premier last March. Smart, sustainable, inclusive, an economy fit for the future, improving the well-being of all South Australians. So there's actually kind of a lot of guerrilla work happening, sort of hiding in plain sight, right on the front cover. One is we actually tried to broaden out the definition of success. It wasn't just about GSP. It was about innovation. It was about sustainability. It was about inclusion. The second was about having an economy that was fit for the future. So actually really sort of digging into global megatrends, whether that's geopolitical instability, bearing in mind we published this before Ukraine and Gaza, talking about where South Australia shows up in that geopolitical. Since that time, we have been busy trying to encourage our colleagues in other departments to think about how that cascades down across the myriad of policies and strategies that they're all responsible for, everything from manufacturing strategies to 20-year infrastructure plans to the sort of regional planning process to small business strategies and so on. We've developed our own measurement framework. I've spared you the dashboard, but we also have a dashboard. I can't share you the link because it's actually internal to government at this stage while we sort of iron out the kinks, but we do actually hope in time that that will be a public-facing document. But importantly, that measurement framework seeks to bring some different measures to the table. You know, we measure what matters, and if we only sort of measure the same things, then we can't actually move the conversation forward. And so we've started to identify what some intermediate outcomes and what some desired end goals are for each of those three sort of qualities. So under smart, sustainable, and inclusive. And we're encouraging our colleagues to use this for program design and evaluation. We're encouraging the ministerial class to think about when they're preparing speeches and presentations to start pulling some of this data and using that, because that actually helps us to tell a different story. But the economy is only sort of one part of the story. We are in the process of developing a couple of other statements, a social statement, an environmental statement. I described this to the Premier as, you can think of this as a three-legged stool. We've developed one leg of the stool. Yes, it speaks to our social and environmental goals, but it is still very economocentric, to bastardize a phrase from this morning. It's still very much grounded in the economic kind of terms of the debate. We actually need a similar statement that actually articulates what our goals are for society on its own terms, what our goals are for the environment on its own terms, and then have those three statements all speaking to each other and integrating. And to do that, and have them all feeding into a wellbeing framework is our ultimate aim. We have been inspired, informed by the work of Treasury in terms of the Measuring What Matters framework, and we will seek to closely align ourselves with that, because I think there's safety in numbers, and I think it's actually really important when we get into Commonwealth state funding conversations and so on, that we can actually start to use sort of common metrics about what matters. And so we look forward to going on that journey. As I say, it feels a little bit like we're sort of visiting some of our old sort of previous successes, but we have to re-articulate them for this new environment that we're in. And happy to take questions later and outside over drinks. Thank you.